Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Small Talk. Dear viewers, I have a very informative video with a different perspective on Iran and Israel war. A good friend of mine posted this on Instagram and it says, "Someone like me would never pay allegiance to someone like you." With that, Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam refused to surrender to the tyrant of his time, Yazid, setting a precedent for times to come. You cannot threaten the very people who have been listening to this in this from the womb of their mothers. It's a beautiful statement that Imam Hussein والسلام, made when Yazid asked him to surrender in Karbala, and he said, "No, someone like me will not pay allegiance to someone like you." And that statement has stuck with all the Muslims since then. And Iran and Khomeini and the government have been always claiming to be the carrier of this legacy of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. Whether it's true or not, that's a totally different debate. But they believe, and they firmly believe in that statement, that you should never surrender to someone who's unjust. And this statement coincides with Trump's tweet on X where he said, "Surrender unconditionally to Iran," which as a result, Imam Khomeini has refused to surrender to Israel. And it said, if Hussein's blood can be used for the right path, my blood is nothing compared to that. So some of these things are golden words that will be written in the history books in the future to come. And I've always been a very big fan of histories and all these battles that have been fought in the past and standing for the right and for the haq. And I think in this matter, Iran is going to defend itself, and it will defend itself till its last blood has been shed. Now let's look at some of the facts between Iran and Israel war. Iran has surprised the world. What Israel done was very expected. They've always done this. We know that there was a talk or agreement going on. There was a second meeting 2 days after Israel attacked Iran. But what a surprise that Israel attacked, but what a surprise that Israel couldn't wait and it decided to attack before this next meeting was to come. Trump was the mediator and he was the one who was negotiating a deal between Iran and Israel. And right after Israel attacks Iran, Trump all of a sudden stands up, which I know it wasn't his saying, but he wanted to take the credit of what's going on in the Middle East. And he stood up and he said, "I gave Iran the 60 days. And after 60 days, the 61th day, Israel attacks." As usual, he likes to take credit for everything. This kind of puts a question mark on Trump, whereas he has been claiming and he has been campaigning his political campaign that he would be the one who will bring peace to the world, especially to the Middle East, and he won the election based off of that campaign. And here he suddenly announced that he is going to launch an attack against Iran. This is something that no one has done in the history of the United States. Bush didn't do it. Biden didn't do it. All the presidents in the past have not done that. Obama didn't do it to this extent. Yeah, they've been providing military aid to Israel, but no one has actually actively took part in the war of Israel with other countries. But he suddenly announced that he's going to launch a strike against Iran, and then for some reason it paused because the retaliation that Iran has showed, that kind of shook him up. Not only him, but Israel as well is in shock. The whole world is in shock. All the media outlets and all the analysts, they're confused, like they were not expecting Iran to be this prepared for these kind of attacks. Israel was trying to make Iran second Gaza. IAEA has already confirmed that there is no evidence of any nuclear production in the facility where Israel has claimed that they were working on nuclear production. In fact, this is an inactive facility, but yet Israel decided that he has to fight against Iran because he has to stop the nuclear weapon production, which there's no evidence of. They obviously had to make an excuse. Iran sent a retaliatory attack against on IDF, and as a result, one of the medical facility was demolished, which surprisingly it was already vacant. There are 2 or 3 deaths have been announced, I guess, but compared to all the deaths that could have happened, those have been avoided. It's like Israel had some sort of inside news, or maybe it's just their sixth sense, as they're so smart about everything. But Iran claimed that they were not trying to attack the hospital, they were trying to attack IDF, and they have these facilities near their universities and hospitals, and sometimes you miss and things happen, and that's called the collateral damage in the war zone. Israel's air defense system has completely failed to stop the attack. Iran is saying that they have IDF centers near universities and hospitals. And they also said that they're using their civilians as human shield, and they said to stop using your human being as civilians as human shield. This is the objection that Israel always used to have on Gaza, but now they're doing the same exact thing when it comes to war against other countries, because they're trying to make themselves look like they're innocent, but they're not. They start the war, they get themselves into the war, and they try to test other nations' capabilities. Obviously, there was no production going on. This whole process is just for the greater Israel, all that nonsense. Obviously, that's a totally different topic. That's not the topic that I'm making video on. My video is on Iran and Israel war. But it was of a different project that they're working on, which is Greater Israel Project, where they want to have all these nations become part of the Greater Israel. So, having said that, after this attack, US may jump into the attack, which Trump had announced, but they have not launched a strike against Iran. Ted Cruz has made a statement that we are with Israel, and Trump has also said that they are going to attack. However, there's no official declaration of war has been announced. And if Iran was to show some weakness, or Iran had showed that they don't have the capabilities to fight back, I'm almost 100% guaranteed that Trump would have launched a strike against Iran. But with Iran retaliating the way it has been retaliating, the whole world was not prepared. Nobody knew that they are this prepared for the times like this to come, even though they didn't have their guards up, because they were thinking that they're still in negotiation, they're still making a deal, and they're safe. Israel will not attack, but Israel did attack unexpectedly. Even then, with the first 2.5 hours were hard for Iran, but then when they responded back, the response was shocking to the world. So therefore, if Iran had showed some weakness, or they had showed that they don't have the capabilities to fight back, Trump would have definitely attacked. But now it's making Trump a little nervous, because he doesn't know what else to expect from Iran. Plus, if he launches this strike and it's a miss, then it's going to lead to a bigger problem. Then he has to get fully involved. And obviously, Congress is not going to approve this, because this is not our war. We don't take active participation into somebody else's war. And that's why Iran has been a little nervous lately. Israel attack has not done much damage to Iran. However, Iran's attack have done significant damage. Some media centers are also claiming that Tel Aviv may not sustain this and it might collapse. The response is that intense. Mind it, Iran has not been able to send all of its missiles there yet. As per Israeli defense analyst, it's costing Israel $285 million per night. Can Israel sustain this much expense on this war? And that's only the war between Iran and Israel. If we add Gaza in it, the cost is around $780 million per night, when Israel was spending $600 million per week. We're not talking about per night, per week. It was hard for it to sustain. Here we're talking about almost $800 million per night, which is very difficult for Israel to sustain. It doesn't have the economic capabilities to sustain this war on 2 forefronts, one in Gaza and one is in Iran. So if we focus on Iran, this $280 million per night is actually going to go up. And the reason being is that the stockpile of the stockpiles are being emptied out fast. If US doesn't replenish those stockpiles for Israel, they are going to run out within 12 days. And after 12 days, it's going to be a big problem, a serious problem for Israel. Israel's defense system, which we all call in common terms the Iron Dome, is not the real defense system. Rather, their defense system is multi-layered. Iron Dome is not even the main system. Their main system and expensive parts are Arrow 2 and Arrow 3, and David's Sling and Iron Beam. Big problem is towards Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 because the missiles that Iran is making are not expensive, but the interception that Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 has to send out is costing them about $3 million per interception. Iron Dome cost is only $150K, but Israel needs to utilize their Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 because the missiles that Iran is sending, they are heavy hand, the ballistic missiles, and they cannot be intercepted by their Iron Dome system. It's only capable of short-range rockets, etc. It's not suitable for heavy-handed supersonic missiles. And if Iran keeps using these missiles, Israel only has 12 days to intercept these. And then after 12 days, if US doesn't help out, Iran cannot fight this battle anymore. Is US going to replenish this? Most likely. It has been doing this for decades in the past, providing military aid and supplying military supplies to Israel for past 3 decades or even longer, and using the taxpayers' dollars, which the common American is struggling with the inflation, with unemployment, their homelessness in the country. The infrastructure is messed up, the roads and everything is like so old and shaken. However, we are capable of funding other people's defense system to fight their battles. Surprise, surprise. And I'm sharing this information for common Americans, for taxpayers, so that you can raise your voices and condemn this, because we don't need to get involved into this war. Israel has tendencies of fighting everybody for whatever reason, and US does not to take part into every illegitimate war that it's starting. Iran is comfortable because short-range ballistic missiles, even if it shoots 60 per day, Iran can sustain them for 12 days. If the number goes higher, then of course the sustainability and attack capacity will go down in terms of days. But these missiles are the ones that Iran is using. Iran has other missiles which it has not even used yet. And if it starts using the ballistic missiles and hypersonic, etc., they're on top of that. If US doesn't replenish Arrow 2 and Arrow 3, then it's a very big problem for Israel. What other missiles does Iran has? There are 3 of them which I would like to mention. They have Sijil. Very little has been used of these missiles so far in this war. Number 2 is the Khyber Shikan, is another one. These are very dangerous missiles, and Israel has almost no defense against these missiles. And Fateh, the third one. All these 3 are very dangerous. We have seen the demonstration by Iran that these missiles conduct a 2-stage or 2-layer attacks. Iran also claims that they have technology with which these missiles cannot be attacked by Israeli defense system, which I kind of believe it, because when they sent these missiles out, there is a US defense on the way, and some other country which I forgot it was, and even crossing those, it was able to reach Israel and then attacked Israel, which kind of made US nervous, and which kind of made Israel very nervous as well. These are actually pretty impressive, and their fighters are actually pretty smart when they're fighting this. Then this is the whole situation. It looks like that Iran is prepared. Iran is ready to fight or try or die trying. So I think they're not going to back off, especially in the situation where they're not on fault. Israel is just making a claim on something which their own IAEA has told and said that this is a fault accusation. All these facilities are even inactive. They don't see any evidence of production of any nuclear weapon, etc. But Israel just wanted to jump into this war, thinking that maybe Iran is so weak and they can take over Iran. Being a Pakistani and being a Muslim, it kind of makes me very upset. I feel like if Iran gives up, or if, God forbid, Israel gets into Iran, I think it's going to try to attack next on Pakistan. However, there's one thing that keeps me sleeping at night is that Pakistan has its nuclear power, and Israel would have to think twice before it attacks Pakistan. And Pakistan military has given a demonstration with this recent mini war that India and Pakistan had during Banyan al-Marsus defense that they started against India, that kind of awakened up the whole world, and world could see that Pakistan military has the capabilities to protect its borders and to protect its nation. I was listening to someone, an important person, I don't know who he was, I forgot, I just caught up them in the middle of the conversation on the national media, and he was saying the goal has always been to establish peace in the Middle East. Ha ha ha, the biggest joke of the century. No, darling, the goal has always been to take over the resources the Middle East has. Unfortunately, Middle East was the one who was blessed with the oil reserves. And as soon as Europe and America found out that they have oil reserves, of course, now they have to go and execute democracy in those countries because they want to take over their resources, which is the oil, and that's very expensive resource, of course, and unfortunately US and Europe doesn't have that. So this manipulation that these politicians propagate on national media is not going to be is not going to impress the general public, the general taxpayers. We all know what you're up to. We all know why you guys are interfering into the Middle East. You have no business there. There's nothing that you need to do in Middle East. Everything was just fine until they announced that they have oil reserves, and now suddenly you wanted to go ahead and implement democracy in those countries. Those countries were running just fine without your democracy implementation. It's like there is actually, US has done these kind of demonstrations past 3 decades, maybe a fourth one now, where they have involved themselves into the war, into the Middle East. Wherever they saw there was oil, they just jumped in, and they came back humiliating themselves. For example, Afghan war, 20 years of humiliation. Iraq war, humiliation. Now they're going to jump into Iran and Israel war. A big humiliation is waiting for the US if US was smart. And the politicians knew what Trump was getting himself into. They would stop this immediately, and the stop is imminent. I was listening to somebody on a YouTube, and he was like, oh, attack from the US on Iran is imminent. And I was like, no, it's not. And today he was making another video, and he was like, I guess the attack by the US on Iran is not imminent. I said, yeah, I told you this a long time ago, 2-3 days ago, that it's not going to happen. It could announce whatever, but Iran is prepared to fight back. It doesn't matter. Anyways, all these battles the US have been fighting in the name of democracy into the Middle Eastern countries, there are memes in those Muslim countries. I'm from Pakistan, and I know what kind of memes are made against the US. I was actually reading a meme just not that long ago. It said, don't announce your resources. Shh, democracy is coming. So it's like, whenever you announce your resource, suddenly democracy and freedom will come into your country. And this is the kind of jokes that people make about US and the US government and the US politicians. All these politicians are obviously just the puppets. They have no say. Initially, Trump was not getting involved into this war, but then obviously it was are pressurized by Israel that you have to come help us. And I can only imagine that if Trump did not take part into this war, most likely Congress will vote to impeach him because Israel has that much power over the U.S. politics and the U.S. Congress. And I think that's why suddenly Trump has announced that it's going to strike against Iran. This country is ran by those top 2 or 3 people who have been taking control of the world economy and the world order, and they're the one who order U.S. president, all these politicians who are their puppets, to go ahead and jump into this and jump into that. In the name of democracy, they have gone to other countries and try to take over their resources. Of course, maybe not willingly, but just like how people say Pakistan government is run by establishment, US has its own establishment. Europe has its own establishment. Across the globe, all these world leaders, so-called world leaders that we call, they're really not world leaders. They are puppets of those top 4, 5, or 6 families who run this world, and they have no choice but to abide by their commands. I would just urge all the US taxpayers to be very mindful, because Iran is prepared, Iran is fighting hard, Iran is not backing off. It was already talking to Israel to make an agreement. There was an already agreement in place which Trump had waived itself, or the US government had waived itself. I don't know why. The idea was they were going to come up with a new agreement, but they never got to it. So Iran already had an agreement. Iran was in the process of making an agreement, but yet Israel attacked Iran. US does not need to jump in, especially when US was playing the role of mediator between the 2 nations, and Israel didn't listen and went ahead and attacked 2 days prior to the next meeting that was going to take place. So US taxpayers have to be very smart, and they need to raise their voices, and they need to tell Trump that this is not the war that you need to jump into. We don't want to struggle anymore economically, financially. We want our children to have a safe place to grow. We want our children to be able to to pay for their bread and butter. With all these wars, all these trillions of dollars that are being burned into this war, it causes lots of inflation and economic crisis into the country. And that's what we need to avoid. Please give me your comments in the comment section below. Give my video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share your perspective and let me know what you think of my perspective. These are some of the facts that I collected. Of course, I had to jot them down on the paper because I couldn't remember all this information. But I tried to give non-biased facts that maybe some other media outlets may not be able to, for some reason, make clear. I just want to make sure that when I state facts, no matter what's in my heart, I have to give non-biased facts and figures to the world, to the American taxpayers, so we know what our government is getting us involved into, and we can raise our voices. Until next one, take care and be safe out there.